Hello. This week we studying Parsha Bo. The last 3 of the 10 plagues are about to take place in Egypt. First, when Moshe goes to the Pharaoh and asks to let the people go, he refuses. Together with Aaron, they're doing that. And the swarm of locusts, as a consequence of this, destroys all crops and greenery in Egypt. And that is a huge physical, financial damage to the country and destruction of food supplies. People go hungry. Then, when the Pharaoh refused to let the people go, and the next plague takes place, which is a month later, because as we know, every plague was taking basically by itself 7 days. And 3 weeks were discussions, negotiations, and preparations. So a month later, darkness envelopes all of Egypt, all the land of Egypt. What is darkness? Torah says no Egyptian man could see his brother. But the darkness didn't affect Israelites in terms of vision. However, we learn from the Torah that 4/5 of Jewish people at the time in Egypt have perished in the plague of darkness. These were the people which actually didn't want to leave Egypt, and God, Hashem, knew that. So it means, my friends, that every Jew living today is a descendant of the best, which Hashem decided not to destroy in the plague of darkness. We are descendants of the 1/5 of all Jewish people which existed at the time, prior to the plague of darkness. Why it was done in the plague of darkness? Because Hashem didn't want the Egyptians to see that the Jews are affected by the plagues, actually in this case, actually worse than the Egyptians. Then, after a while, after 3 weeks, when Pharaoh refused to let the Jewish people go, Hashem ordered Moshe to gather all Jewish people and to tell them the following: that they will take a lamb or a little goat, a kid, they will slaughter it, and they will use the blood of those lambs or goats to put on the frame door, on their doors of their houses, so that when the angel of death comes across all Egypt, these houses are passed over. Yes, you're absolutely right if you said that this is the introduction of the Passover concept. That's absolutely correct. So the last plague of killing of the firstborn was taking place on the 15th of Nisan, right of the stroke of midnight. And all Jewish people were told by Moshe, on orders from Hashem, not to leave their houses at that time at all, to wait until they are told that they can leave the houses in order to leave Egypt. God commands that the first mitzvah to be given to the people of Israel, the first mitzvah, to establish a calendar based on the monthly rebirth of the moon, and Israelites instructed to bring the Passover offerings to God, and God should pass over these homes when he comes to kill the Egyptian firstborn. The roasted meat of the offering is to be eaten that night together with the matzah, unleavened bread, and bitter herbs. Obviously, as we know, the death of the firstborn finally breaks the Pharaoh's resistance, and he literally drives the children of Israel from the land. And they are forced to leave eventually so hastily, so that they depart basically holding their dough, which they prepared. Basically it was for Friday night, and the dough didn't have time to rise, so it's unleavened bread. And before they go, they ask the Egyptian neighbors for gold and silver and garments, and obviously the Egyptians, under influence from Hashem, basically share with them more than they even asked for. And by doing that, they fulfilling Hashem's promise made to Abraham that his descendants would leave Egypt with great wealth. And they certainly did. The children of Israel are commanded to consecrate all their firstborn and to observe the anniversary of the Exodus each year by removing all leaven products from their houses for 7 days, eating matzah, and telling the story of their redemption to their children. They are also commanded to wear tefillin on the arm and on the head, as a reminder of the Exodus and their resultant commitment to Hashem, to God. And this is basically what the whole parsha is all about, in short. My question is, Moshe was preparing for this speech to Jewish people before the final Exodus. And what would he talk to them about? Rabbi Jonathan Sachs raises that issue very nicely, and I will try to convey the ideas he brings up in his articles regarding that. What he says is, Moshe could talk about freedom, shaking off the shackles of the chains of slavery, the ability of Jewish people to leave Egypt now, so that they will obtain their future freedom. And he could talk about the land of milk and honey promised to them by Hashem. But no, he spoke about education. He spoke to Jewish people about memory of what is taking place right now with them. The whole concept of Hashem taking them out from Egypt. Memory of it. And the way how important it is to educate children about all of this. To maintain, to create the certain level of education and knowledge and understanding of the future generations. What has transpired and who they are and what they are. Moshe is saying 3 times in this parsha, he brings up the same idea basically in slightly different words. And I quote, "And it will come to pass, if your children say to you, 'What is this service to you?'" Talking about Passover service. "You shall say, 'It is a Passover sacrifice to the Lord. For he passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians, and he saved our houses.'" This is from Exodus 12, chapter 12, 26 and 27. Then he says in the same parsha, "And you shall tell your son on the day, saying, 'Because of this the Lord did this for me when I went out of Egypt.'" Exodus 14:8. And the third time, And it will come to pass if your son asks you in the future, saying, what is this? You shall say to him, with a mighty hand did the Lord take us out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. This is in Exodus 13:34. Education. We Jews became people of the book, people of education. Do you realize that as a consequence of this law introduced by Moshe on Hashem's orders, Israelites had introduced 100% publicly funded education during the Second Temple time? What we're talking about? The exodus from Egypt took place 3,330 years ago. So as per the Gregorian calendar, for instance, it was the year 1312 before Common Era. Now, already at the time of the Second Temple, which the Second Temple was consecrated in the year 516 before Common Era, which is 2,534 years ago. Israelites introduced, again I repeat, 100% publicly funded education. And it doesn't mean that education only in Torah. Yes, Torah was the main subject, but children were taught to read, to use mathematics. They had general subjects as well. And 100% of population at that time was well educated. To give you a comparison, England introduced universal compulsory education in the year 1870, less than 200 years ago. And in the United States, compulsory education, publicly funded, was introduced between the years 1852, and the last state which introduced it was in 1918 in Mississippi. So that gives you an idea how much more advanced the Jewish culture was in terms of education. Moshe was telling them that the freedom is more than the moment of political triumph. It is a constant endeavor throughout the ages to teach those who come after us about the battles our ancestors fought, and why so that my freedom is never sacrificed to yours or purchased at the cost of someone else's freedom. This is what Rebbe Sachs is saying about importance of freedom and how it is achieved. Nelson Mandela actually said that education is a weapon. And I totally agree with that concept. Why? Because if the educators, the teachers, teach children love, mutual understanding, friendship, then the society benefits and it becomes a peaceful, tolerant society. And the children learn when they become adults to respect each other, as well as the others. However, when the teachers teach hatred and they state in their books that whoever doesn't share your ideas, whether they are religious or otherwise, whoever does not share your ideas, you must kill. And this is exactly what builds hatred. And the society deteriorates into war, aggression, and butchery of each other. We don't need to go very far. Just have a look at what is going on in the Middle East right now. And you will see the consequences of education of hatred. And this is why these are the consequences of what these societies and the education systems were doing for the last 100 years, probably more. I don't know. But what I do know is I read some of the books and I could see where it's clearly stated everyone who doesn't believe in our way of understanding of God and religion must be killed. End of story. This is why education is the paramount aspect of development of any society, and we Jews are the ones who were given the utmost task to bring the understanding of that concept to the whole world. I would like to finish with the words of Rabbi Jonathan Sachs in his book. Thanks to Torah, Jews never forgot that the freedom is never-ending effort of education in which parents, teachers, homes and schools are all partners in a dialogue between the generations. Learning the Talmud Torah is the very foundation of Judaism, which is the guardian of our heritage and our hope for a better world. Thank you very much. I will see you in the next Parsha.